Hey everybody, welcome back to Dirt Grease Outdoor Peace. Today I'm working on a 2005 Roadking Classic, and it's got a rocker box oil leak, and I'm not going to waste any time, and I'm just going to start ripping into it because I've already wasted a lot of time, and just need to get this thing done. Pull these rocker box bolts out, and now you don't have to listen to the impact because I can't fit it in on the other side. I gotta do these by hand. So the guy said it's been a good bike. He wanted an oil change, and these rocker boxes were leaking. It also needs a breather update. Also, I'm gonna look at the spark plugs too and see how well it's burning. 04, early 05, they had some bad valve seals. It was when 04 they came out with the beehive valve springs and the smaller valve stems. When they first did that, they had bad valve seals, and the the valve seals actually acted like an oil pump, and they would pump the oil down through the guide and into the combustion chamber, and it was terrible. We would see bikes come in that had just these big caked up spark plugs, and customer would go through some oil. And so I want to make sure that when I get this apart, that this has the updated valve seals, and if not, I have a bunch of them. So I just pulled the bolts out of the other side, and this was right before they went to the new silicone impregnated gaskets. So these are just the steel gaskets, and these, after about 10 years or so, they start giving up. One other thing I'm going to do on this is update the breathers. Harley came out with a newer breather setup that separates the oily air a little better. So just set those rockers off to the side. The other thing I'm going to have to do is get my jack out so I can roll the motor over a little bit. I think what I'll do right now is just find my socket. The 3/8 on these breathers. Get these breathers broke loose to get them out of the way. I leave the bolts most of the way in there. I lift them up a little bit, and then I just use those as a lever to pull the breather right off of there. So the oily breather air that's in the crankcase gets vented out through the pushrod tubes and into the rocker chamber, and then it can go under the rocker support, and there's some holes there. So the whole time that oily air is coming back up, it's giving the oil a chance to separate out of the air. So they got holes in the bottom. Oh, I can show you. Let me show you on the front one here. You can see these holes right here. So then the air comes up through there, and it the gasket fell apart. It gets into this chamber in the bottom of the breather. This little mesh. It's almost like a piece of Scotch-Brite. It's like airy. Oh, I don't know what you call it. It's some kind of plastic mesh. It gets to this plastic mesh, and then on the other side of this, it has an umbrella valve. So the air will come from the bottom. Some of the oil will get separated by this, and then this is like a one-way valve where when it gets crankcase pressure, this can lift up a little bit and let the air out, and then it closes on its own and seals the outside air from going back in. So it's like a one-way valve. So these are getting upgraded. The new ones are steel. I think they upgraded the umbrella valve, and then it was probably cheaper for them to make the new breathers out of a stamped steel. So these are aluminum. These are cast aluminum pieces, so it was probably a little bit cheaper for them to make the new ones. The bolts are shorter. So we'll get the back ones off. But that's the first step on pulling that. The rear one here, I leave it right in the rocker support till you get it off, because it's a pretty tight fit here on the back. Might have to switch to a wrench. A good set of ratchet wrenches are a must for working on a lot of different stuff on a Harley, but really for the rocker boxes especially, these are pretty tight. The touring bikes have a little bit more room. The older Softails were really tight. These are just Craftsman ratchet wrenches, but they worked really well for me over the years. Okay, so that's loose. Actually coming apart. No, I'll get the jack under there. I'll show you the right sequence. Okay, so I got my jack under here. I'm just gonna jack it up so the rear wheel is off the ground. And I'm gonna pull these spark plugs out. Yeah, it's burning clean. Hopefully you can see that okay. Burning nice and clean. It's fuel injected, so the plugs are going to be white. Yeah, it's clean. So I'll lower it back down a little bit. Yeah, I raised it up because I was doing an oil change on it and I had to put the drain plug back in. I'll get you guys back over on the other side. Okay, so now I'm gonna put it up in high gear. And then I'll roll it over and well, I don't have to. This one is on overlap, so I can just take my 1/2 inch take these rocker bolts out. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to break them loose first. Take a 1/2 inch and break these loose. These little Craftsman wrench sockets are nice. You clip them right into the wrench and make a real short extension or a real short ratchet. Yeah, I guess I was wrong on this one. This is a real early 04. It was made in October of 03. This one does not have the beehive valve springs. So this must have been the last year before they went to the beehive springs and those bad seals. That must have been in 2005. Pull that rocker support out. We can leave the push rods in there. I'm gonna suck up some of this oil before I pull it off and make a mess. You know, once you're to this point, you could do one cylinder at a time if you wanted. Just, you know, tear this one all the way down and then do the gasket and go back together. What did I do with it? I had to break these loose. Yeah, they're not very tight. I think the impact would do it on this one. Yeah, they're not very tight. This is just a 1/4 inch drive impact. It's nothing crazy. And I throttle the trigger so I'm not spinning it real fast. Once they start coming out, I just back off. This side might be tricky. Now I gotta reach over there. Nope, too awkward. Yeah, the gasket really wasn't too bad, really. It's just yeah, after a while it gives up the crush on the material here, and there's no sealant on it. That's what's nice about the new ones. It is starting to separate this rust and inhibitive coating that they put on them. But we'll just get everything cleaned up and get ready for the new gasket. Give you a better look at it. Yeah, so after the oily air goes through the breather, and then this is the passage where the air comes back down through and comes out to the breather. Just wipe this off quick, and then I've got some either lacquer thinner or brake clean. Just get all the dirt and oil off of there before you put the new gasket on. But I think what I'm going to do is roll it over and tear the rear apart. So we're going to watch. I usually just put my fingers on there while I'm rolling it over, and then I can feel the rockers moving. But we'll just look at it. Right, there we go. See, now the intake is opening. Oh, there's a loose clamp. What the heck that noise was. Okay, so now we're coming up on compression. So that's where we want to be. Compression stroke. Not valve overlap. Did I say valve overlap on the front one? That's not what I meant. I meant compression stroke. Ooh, that's slow. Go over on the other side. Ouch. That felt good. Once they're loose, I'll just zip this side out. And then sneak it out of there. Sometimes, that one didn't come out too bad. Sometimes it's a little trick trying to get everything lined up. Get the breather out of there. And then this one, I take the push rods out. Just bring them up here and let them drip for a second. You get those out of the way so that once you get your lower rocker housing loosened, it gives you a little more room to sneak that out of there. And on a twin cam, the black push rod is the exhaust, and that's on the back. The other way you can tell is to line up the line up the shoulder on the push rod and then look at the bottom. And the intake push rod is shorter than the exhaust. So we'll get these lower housing bolts broke. Well, that one is loose. These broke loose. A lot of these we're going to have to do by hand because we can't get the impact in there. I don't know if I showed it on the Sportster video. There is a specialty tool for that. This is from Matco, but Harley sells them too. This is a 3/16 Allen. This would be used on the older, the Evolution engines that just have a Allen bolt, a socket head bolt. And then this is a later style rocker box wrench with a 7/16. I do use these sometimes, like if that was really tight, I could reach in there and break that loose and ratchet it, but the ratchet has real coarse teeth, so it's just easier to use the fine tooth ratchet wrench. But these are nice tools. Well, there's that one. The one thing I do want to do is clean out these little breather bolt holes. Just hit them with a little brake clean. Spray them out. Because if that has oil in it, the new bolts have Loctite on them. A lock patch is built on them. And they seal into the threads as they go in. And those used to break out when we were putting the breather back together. And so one way you can get away from that is to just spray a little brake clean in there and then blow those bolt holes out. It's kind of messy, but it's better than cracking the bottom of the head. I'm gonna do that one again. The other thing I do is, which I'll show you when I get to that. I take a little 1/4-20 threading die and I clean the lock patch off of the new bolts. So yeah, it's just a little extra. Just a little extra precaution. I'm gonna get a clean lint-free rag and a little lacquer thinner and wipe those surfaces. Lacquer thinner is nice to have around the shop. It's a good cleaner, degreaser. It's nice for wiping this stuff off. It dries fast. It's good at breaking down the oil and grease and letting it get lifted off by the rag. Just give that a, I always just give it a little wipe with my hand and make sure that there's no sharp edges or stuff that's left behind. Make sure it feels clean. Take that same rag and clean the surfaces. I usually just tuck these bolts out of the way. Wipe this down real good. Wipe these bolts off a little bit. Clean this up a little bit, and then I'll get a new rag for the other one. Take these O-rings out, because I got new ones. Get the gaskets. So this is what the new gaskets look like. They have this like silicone rubber coating on there that seals them. And it's the same gasket, they just get flipped over from one head to the other. So we'll just flip it. So this one says front head right there. Or no, we're on the, let's do the rear. So flip it over so the breather chamber is on this side. And now it says rear head. Put some, I don't know, get this in the good spot here. Put just a drop of blue Loctite on these. That's the gasket. 15 to 18 pounds on these lower rocker housings. Let's see what I can reach here. I think the inside ones I have to do by hand because I can't get my torque wrench in there. I'll get a feel what the torque is on these. Oh, tight, real tight. Okay, check these again. Good. Okay. Put our push rods back in. Just a little dab of oil in there. Little dab on the valve tip. Make sure that's not dry when it starts up. Okay, so here's the breather assemblies. So this is the lower part of the breather. So this is the umbrella valve area here. This is the umbrella valve. So that goes in through like that. You pull on the tab on the bottom and make sure it's in all the way. And then you take your oil separator and tuck it up under the gasket. That'll hold it in place. And then this is the breather lid. That just goes on top. Just like that. But one thing I do is I take a 1/4-20 threading die and I take this lock patch off of there because that can I've seen it do it a bunch of times. It can seal off on the head and then it can actually pop the little piece of the head out of the bottom and it can cause some problems. So I take that old hard lock patch off and I just put a little bit of my own blue Loctite on there. It just takes a second. As soon as you get past that lock patch, it's good to go. You don't need to go any further up than where that lock patch is. Okay, I got all those done. So now I can take this complete rocker assembly, put the new bolts through it, and put some, we gotta put our O-ring on. I'll put a little oil on this O-ring and put it down in the groove there. Well, I survived the fall. How'd you like that? Gotta get a new battery. Okay, so I'm gonna take that new O-ring, put some oil on it, get it coated good. Sit that in a groove. Take the new breather setup with our cleaned up threads, put a little drop of Loctite on it. Get our rocker support here. I'm gonna wipe these bolts off. Put a little dab of Loctite on these. Put our new breather in there. Slide that in place. Make sure wiggle it around, just make sure the push rods are in place. Get your bolts going. Yay. So good, done. Okay, this torque wrench that I have is a Matco, and it's a special torque wrench where the 3/8 drive piece just pops out of there. So I have these shallow sockets that pop in here, and this one is 1/2 inch. I'm going to pop that one in there like that. They just happen to be hollow too, which is nice. So I think that'll give me enough room where I can reach in here and torque these. And we're gonna start with 20. I think the spec is 8. No, is it 20? I think it is a wide range on the spec on that. Is it 18 to 22? 20 to 22? I think what I used to always do is do 21. So I'll just go back around. Do 21. There we go. Tighten up our breather. There we go. And now I would check this surface again. Get our new gasket. And we'll just do the same thing on this. Just clean that off. I'm going to get some brake clean on there. Just a little drop of Loctite on these. Over on the other side. Same thing, a little drop of Loctite. I can't get a torque wrench on the other side, so I'm just going to tighten these by hand. Okay, now that that's sat a minute, we can roll this over. Get the front one up on compression. And we'll do that one. We'll make sure we got it the right way. This is front head. We want to see that breather on the inside. A little oil on the push rods, on the tip of the valve. Rocker base. Just check it again with the rag. Just a little bit of blue Loctite on there. Line up that gasket and get the bolts started. This one I'll just run them down with the impact real slow, because I got room to get in there. Save my fingers a little bit. Start in the middle. Snug those up. Get our O-ring, oil that up. Put that in the groove. Gotta put our other breather together real quick. Just like the last one. Put the umbrella valve down through there. Pull the tab on the bottom until it's engaged. Stuff our little Scotch-Brite sponge in there. And then that gets the cover. Screws. Put it in there. Put it in the rocker housing, or lower rocker support, just like that. And then I'll Loctite the bolts along with the other ones. Give this a little wipe. A little bit of oil residue is not gonna hurt too much. You don't want them dripping with oil, but put our Loctite in there. Give it a little wiggle and make sure you got the push rods captured in there. The bolts going. Oh, that's funny. These throttle cables are supposed to be through this P clamp, and they never caught it. The factory just riveted that thing on there and didn't even have the throttle cables in there. Must have been made on a Monday or a Friday. Okay, so draw these up now. Get our torque wrench and go back up to 21. Go back around, double check. Triple check. There we go. Make sure you always back your torque wrench off to at least 0 when you're done with it. Just keeps the tension off of the spring in there, keeps it working good. Now we'll tighten up our breather bolts. They run in there real nice when you clean that lock patch off of there. I just snug these down. Check our surface here. Make sure that's nice and clean. Get the gasket. Get the cover. Put a little dab on these bolts here. Get those started. Go on the other side. Give these bolts a little wipe. Just run those down. Just barely snug them. Just run them down until they touch a little bit. Once I get this cover back on, I'll take a rag and some cleaner, wipe the rocker boxes a little bit more, and spray off the head a little bit better where the oil was. I didn't want to do it when it was apart because I didn't want to get a bunch of junk into the open areas of the heads and on the valve springs and all that. These ones I'm just going to tighten by hand. And just do the middle. Snug the other side a little bit. Go to the outside. Snug the other side. And then just go down the line. You could use a ratchet on this one, but since I have a feel from the other side, I just like to use the same wrench. And you get that same feel. So they're all about the same. The cover isn't as crucial as the support. Just take a little brake cleaner on a rag. Wipe this down. Clean up the residual. I think I'll spray off this front head a little bit. Give that a little wipe there. Put it in neutral. If you were second guessing your rocker supports or your valves or anything like that, you could roll it over by hand with the spark plugs out and just make sure it rolled over real smooth. Shouldn't have any problems there. I'm going to put a little never sees on these spark plugs before I put them back in. Okay, we're going to get the coil and the plug wires back in place. On the twin cams, I think a lot of the later model stuff has the cylinder front and rear on the coil. It's real small right here by the tower. That's the rear. This one is for the front. So the front one, I think they're both the same length spark plug wires too. So what they do with the front one is they just loop it up here through a clip to take up the slack and get it aimed back in the right place. The coil bracket, I always just hook the opposite side on. It goes on this square peg. The other side's hooked down there, so then I just pull on the bracket and let it snap in place. And that holds it until you slip the tank on. So we'll get this front plug wire put on, and I'll find the rear one here. So I'll put the straight boot goes on the coil. Clip that in there. And then this one goes through the clip that I just dropped on the floor. It looks like the clip is broke. Snap in there, but just clip the wire in there. Just make sure it's not pinched anywhere, rubbing on anything. This clip. Oh, there's a clip back here for the back of the wire. snap that on. Just make sure it's not rubbing in anything. This is for the cruise control. So now we can slip the tank back on there. So you want to make sure your rubber pieces are on here. You used to spray a little Windex on these to let them slide on there. I use one of these, it's like a big plastic pinch tool. It's like almost like a hemostat, but it's like pliers. So I usually flip the hose up out of the way. Set the tank on, and then I just grab the hose and feed it through. Now lift that up, start our bolt. Start the bolts on the other side. So the front one and the back one. Put the vent back on. And I just snug these up. I like to use the genuine Harley, I think they're called Omega clamps. The 5/16, this goes on a 5/16 hose. The part number is 10038A, and the 1/4" line clamp is 10014. So you'd know if you want to have a couple of these in stock, you need, these happen to be Nipex special pliers to clamp these. You can also use a pair of end cut dikes. If you just dull the edge on them, you can get those on there and squeeze them down. So I'll show you the process here of, let me get a light. You can do it without draining the tank. It's, even if you do drain the tank, there's always going to be a little bit of gas dribbling out of there. So you put your clamp on the line, and then on the tank right now is a plug that I made with a short piece of hose, and I put a bolt in it. That bolt has a smooth shoulder on it that seals up in the hose real good. A lot of times I don't even put the clamp on them, but that one had a clamp, so I clamped it. The clamp out of the way, and then you get ready to do the switcheroo. Get this to the end, and then you get ready to stick your crossover line on there. And that's about what you expect every time. A little bit of gas pours out. See, the hose snapped right into place where it was, just from the memory of the hose being there for so long. Okay, so there's the clamp on there. So the hose is in place. You want to grab your clamp and squeeze her down. They usually just, right there, it just kind of it stopped and it bottomed out. You can't really squeeze it anymore. And that's all there is to it with those. They're nice and smooth, so they don't bite into the hose like a regular hose clamp. And that's what Harley uses on their gas lines and oil lines on soft tail or older soft tails. Yeah, so it's a nice setup. Then I can go over on the other side and release the release this clamp. You just slide this lock up. When you go to use this, you just put it on the hose and you pinch it like a pair of pliers, but then this lock comes down and holds it in place, so that's nice. These are from Matco. I'm sure you can find them like even at Harbor Freight or online. It's a nice plier to have. Yeah, the other thing you want to do is when you take these fuel lines out, you want to lube this thing up real good before you try to put it back in, because the O-ring can get damaged real easy, and those O-rings are a pain to replace. You have to use a mirror and a pick and reach up in there and do it, and that's all backwards and everything. So hopefully you just kind of lube these up and hopefully work it in there real slow and don't damage that O-ring. So I'll lift the lock up, and then I just real easy just work that, maybe even a couple times, because chances are these aren't used very much, and you just gotta kind of loosen them up as you go. There we go. So that one snapped in there pretty good. So I'll check that once I go to put this back together and turn that on. I'll make sure that this isn't leaking. Get our dash, and of course the rubber trim is falling off like they all do. Let's get that in place. Then we get our fuel pump connection. Get that into place. Make sure that you don't bend the pins over. For some reason the pins in here are real small. It's real easy to bend those pins over on those small Deutsch connectors. Get our stud started in the hole there. Make sure you're not pinching the wires underneath there. Which it's where it should be. So it should just gotta keep an eye on these gasket pieces here, because they want to just fall out. Put the nut on. Just make sure it works into place by hand, and then just hold it and get this started. Make sure it wants to go down on the tank. Check your gasket one more time, and then snug that up a little bit. That must have bottomed out. Oh, I think it's missing the washer. I think there should be a washer underneath there, but it's tight enough. Just tighten this screw up. Now we can turn it on. We'll make sure that this thing isn't leaking. turn it off, let it time out, turn it back on. And looks like we lucked out on that one. So yeah, it looks like we're all wrapped up on this one. I just got to clean up my tools. So I just got to put the seat back on it and put the oil in it. Looks like somebody put the, I just noticed that. Oh, this spacer is in the right place. You got to be careful on these aftermarket batteries. There's a spacer that goes behind the cable, like there. That little brass spacer. This one is on the wrong side. That spacer has to go under the cable, so it's on the ground side, so I can just undo that, and then I'll check and make sure the positive side is tight. So there's one more thing I gotta do. Before I put the seat on, I'll fix that, put the oil in it, fire it up, make sure everything sounds good, and so I wanted to make a point to get another Harley project on the video list for you guys. I know I had a pretty good success with the in-depth inner primary video on the 05 Dyna, and that's getting a lot of views. The rocker box job, or the top end job on the Sportster, that one's really not doing all that well, but it doesn't mean that someday it might get a little bit more attention on there. So just another look into some of the projects I got going on. I'll get this one buttoned up, and then Tuesday I've got a customer coming back with a street glide that I worked on probably a month or so ago now, at least a month or so ago. Street glide that I worked on, that he was riding it and the breather bolts broke off, so it was nothing that I did, but I just have to try to use an extractor and get those broken breather bolts out of there and get that put back together for him. So yeah, hopefully everybody's having a good day, and I hope y'all like the video. If you guys like the video, please make sure you take the time to give me a like, and if you're not subscribed, please click that subscribe button for me. It would mean a lot to me, help support me and the channel. And leave a comment down below on what you guys are working on and what you got for projects. And I thank you all for being here till the end, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, don't forget, I keep forgetting to get the catchphrase in there. Don't be afraid to get in the dirt, get in the grease, but make sure you get outside and enjoy that. Oh, one more time. Don't be afraid to get out, get in the dirt and the grease, but you have to get out and enjoy that outdoor piece. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate y'all being here, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.